All right, so I teased this story earlier, and I think it's a really important one because it is exactly the type of deception and stochastic terrorism, quite frankly, that will lead to real world violence. The headline that started floating around is Democrats have started killing Republicans. Democrats are just murdering Republicans. And the questions are, where did that come from? And where is this supposedly happening? Well, where it came from is Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene speaking at the Trump rally in Warren, Michigan over the weekend. Daily Beast covered it. Many media outlets covered it. And the headlines are something like Marjorie Taylor Greene says Democrats have started killings of Republicans. Let's listen to what she had to say. And as is often the case, actually, should I explain? Now, let's play it first. Let's just play it, and then there's plenty to talk about here.
We're all targets now, though, for daring to push back against the regime, and it doesn't stop at a weaponized legal system.
By the way, use of the word regime to suggest that the Biden administration is anything other than a democratically elected presidency.
I'm not going to mince words with you all. Democrats want Republicans dead, and they've already started the killings. An 18-year-old boy was run down by a Democrat driver who confessed to killing the teenager simply because he was a Republican.
That's not true, and I'll tell you about it later.
Michigan, just last week, an 83-year-old woman was shot in the back for advocating for the unborn.
That is also not true, and I will tell you about that story in a minute.
Yep. Joe Biden has declared every freedom-loving American an enemy of the state. But under Republicans, we will take back our country from the communists who have stolen it and want us to disappear. We will expose the unelected bureaucrats, the real enemies within, who have abused their power and declared political warfare.
All right. So first of all, there are no communists that have taken over. Joe Biden's not a communist. The communists and the socialists really don't like Biden because they say he's basically just a centrist, Republican light capitalist. Okay, so there's no communists here. That's just nonsense. The rhetoric that Marjorie Taylor Greene is using there is completely unacceptable. And it is very dangerous because the lunatics in the audience will hear it and they'll believe it. And then they might go and say, well, listen, if the Democrats are just killing Republicans on sight, then we can do the same. But understand that the stories that Marjorie Taylor Greene told aren't true. She says a Democrat ran over a Republican because he was a Republican, just ran him over with his car. What happened, and you can Google the story, two morons, more than likely, got into a political argument. We don't know whether alcohol or substances were a factor, but two people got into an argument. It was an argument about politics. The argument escalated, and one of them jumped in his car and hit the other person with his car. It was a Democrat who hit a Republican. It's wrong. It's a crime. Political discussions should never escalate to that, should be charged, should be punished if convicted. But Marjorie Taylor Greene wants you to think some guy just drove by someone with a MAGA hat that he didn't know and ran him over. Like it's just some kind of street assassination. This was an argument that became a fight that went crazy. Crimes were committed, punish the criminals, but it's not my neighbor's a Democrat, I'm going to go run him over. It didn't happen, okay? Then she says an 83-year-old woman was shot for advocating for the unborn. It's not what happened, okay? Google the story. A man in Michigan was charged for shooting an elderly woman in an altercation that involved an accidental shooting. Richard Harvey is 74 years old. The story, as far as we know right now, is that Joan Jacobson was campaigning door to door in Michigan against abortion. That part is true. Joan Jacobson came to the door of the Harveys. Harvey and his wife were arguing. They'd had a disagreement with the woman who was going door to door arguing against abortion. And then at a certain point, the guy grabbed his, what are the details here? Grabbed his rifle, a 22, grabbed a 22. The rifle belonged to the guy's wife. and said, hey, you got to get out of here. You got to get out of here, and fired a warning shot at a tree. Now, it's already wrong. I'm already completely against it. Okay. Then he says that he, quote, without thinking, tried to hit the woman's clipboard out of her hands with the rifle. And at that point, he accidentally shot the woman. So negligent discharge should be charged with a crime if the investigation determines one was committed, as I always say. But it was not a story. The way Marjorie Taylor Greene paints it is there was a pro-life event and a guy showed up with a rifle and shot a pro-life protester. This was another one of these altercation confrontation things. I'm not defending them, but they are not the lurid assassinations, I mean, that Marjorie Taylor Greene claims them to be. Trump does this a lot during his speeches. Trump will tell stories like, we just saw the conviction of an illegal immigrant who was released into the public and shot someone dead, right? And then you look up the story and the crime happened when Trump was president. Yes, now they were convicted, but what does it matter? The crime happened when Trump was president, trying to make the point that under Biden, these things are happening, even though it happened under Trump in some of these cases. Look up every one of these. And of course, extraordinarily dangerous, because when people on the right hear these stories, they become more likely on average to act out in violent ways because they believe that the left is doing it. Extraordinarily dangerous stuff. One of our sponsors is Allform, the easiest way to design your own custom sofa. I have one from Allform. Unlike other companies, Allform lets you choose the fabric, the size, the shape, color, even the color of the legs. I have not one, but two Allform sofas. I've had them for years. They look good as new. Definitely the most comfortable furniture I own. And it gets even cooler because Allform sofas are completely modular. You can buy a sofa, and if you move, you can adapt it to the new space by adding onto it or rearranging its elements. That is definitely not something you get from your typical sofa company. Allform has everything from 8-piece sectionals to love seats and armchairs. Everything is made in the USA using premium materials. Allform makes sure that assembly is really easy. I didn't even need any tools, which is good because I have very few tools. And you can keep the sofa for over 3 months and send it back free if you don't like it for a full refund. Right now, Allform is giving my audience 20% off all orders at allform.com/Pacman. The link is down below.